Nice one. Just a big thank you for Atlassian and Look Ahead for having me tonight. Really excited to speak to you guys. Basically, my talk is about React Native and how we use this in production with our existing native apps. I say we. I should have probably told you where I work. I've been working at Domain now as an Android developer for about the last 5 months. Before that, as Georgina said, I was in the UK, so worked a few startups, a bit of Android, a bit of iOS, and a bit of front end as well. I'm a semi-active on Twitter, and LinkedIn's there as well, if you want to get to know me. So cool, yeah, let's jump right in. So React Native, this is the official spiel from Facebook. It says, learn once, write anywhere, build mobile apps with React. So first question is, what is React? React is a JavaScript library, so it's used for building user interfaces. Big draw of React compared to other JavaScript frameworks is that it's component-based. So you can build really nice single atomic bits of code, and it really helps you scale when you're building a web application. That was announced in 2013. It's pretty popular. We use it a lot at Domain on our front-end applications. And so React Native is a library that allows you to use React and pure JavaScript to write native components. So just to emphasize this is not a web view. This is you write JavaScript and it renders natively. So if you write a text view in JavaScript, it's going to go and it's going to be a text view in Android and the equivalent in iOS. So just back to that sounds really, really nice. And I thought, oh, that's cool, but I have massive issues with this subtitle here. So yeah, I think it's safe to say if you've been in mobile, you've heard this before. The origins of this is actually about 20 years ago. The company called Sun Microsystems, and they're talking about a cool little programming language called Java. So they said you could write once and you could be able to deploy it anywhere. So cross-platform mobile has been done before, right? You've had these things that say single code base, and you can deploy it to Android and iOS, and it's great, and it works really well. So these are a few cross-platform technologies that people have used in the past. I've just handpicked a few here. There's loads of others. People still work with these, with maybe the exception of Xamarin there, which you can do in C#. All of these render into a web view. So essentially it's some kind of abstraction around something like Angular for Ionic, and at the end of the day you've just got a web view inside your iOS app or your Android app. So yeah, I think a better model for a lot of this stuff is write once and debug everywhere. I actually worked as an Ionic developer for about 4 months, and it was really, really painful. So this is just a nice picture. And I'm going to tell you why. This is just to introduce a concept of Brownfield and Greenfield. So what does this mean in the context of mobile apps? So a Brownfield app is an app that already exists. It's got legacy code. It's been out in production. And a Greenfield app is something brand new. It's every developer's dream to work on one of these guys. You can just come in. You can have your architecture the way you want. You can start doing TDD. It's lovely. That's not really reality. So with React Native, you can build an app from the ground up as a Greenfield app, or you can also use these components and integrate with your existing app, which is what I'm going to talk about. So if you've interacted with any of these screens, could you stick up your hand? Just if you don't know what they are, this is Facebook, Instagram, and Tesla. I'd like to say that I've used the last one there, but I'm not fortunate enough to have a Tesla just yet. But all these apps use React Native. So the first two there, that's Facebook and Instagram, they are Brownfield apps. They started off as pure Java applications. Who knows what they're completely written in these days, but the marketplace in Facebook and the settings page in Instagram are completely built in React Native. And from what I understand with the Tesla app, I actually grabbed the APK for this. I'm pretty sure it's pure React Native, which is pretty cool. Maybe someone that has a Tesla can let me play with it and see what it's like. It seems pretty cool. Anyway, so these guys are using it. These big companies are using it. I mean, Facebook and Instagram have some of like the biggest user bases, and they've written quite extensively about how they use it and what benefits it gives. That is my Instagram. If you want to follow, I just take pictures of dogs. So yeah, this came out earlier this year. There's about 64,000 people responded. This is the Stack Overflow official developer survey. It's a really, really good read. There's some really interesting statistics that came out of it. And the questions here were, what do you identify as? Select all that apply. So some people said they were a web developer, an Android developer, and a mobile developer, for example. 72% of these 64,000 people said they were web devs, and only 23% said they were mobile. So this is just to give you an understanding of the state of the industry. I'm sure the recruiters from Look Ahead can give you a bit of a better example and attest to that. JavaScript is the most popular language for the 5th year in a row. Regardless if you like it or not, it's not going anywhere, I'm afraid. And React is the most loved technology of 2017. So this is important because I think with previous cross-platform solutions, people have just become frustrated with the technology and they just push it to one side. The web developers that are using React love it. People who use React Native seem to love it as well. So there's obviously some velocity behind that. This is my unofficial domain developer survey. So this is a kind of shows the landscape of how many devs we have got of domain. These numbers are changing all the time. We're probably hiring if you want to check out our jobs page. I wasn't paid to say that. So there's 5 of us in the Android dev team. A little bit more on iOS because they're supporting another product. And so we've got quite a few front-end devs, and I wanted to be clear here, and I want to find out how many React devs have we actually got? How many people are using not just pure JavaScript? How many people are using React? And it's around 30. So you can kind of see there's a bit of an imbalance. We've got a lot more React devs than we have native mobile devs. So yeah, what motivated us to use React Native? We want to be pretty skeptical about this because, I mean, it's cool to say that Facebook and Instagram use it, but I mean, arguably we're quite a bit smaller than them, so how can we leverage it? Is it actually going to be useful? Is it going to be worth our time? So we didn't trust what they said. We said, let's just go in a new light and see what we can figure out. We want to understand the tech, and we just wanted to see how useful we can use React Native within our Brownfield applications. So this is a use case. The thing about real estate in Australia that really surprised me, so I'm from the UK, agents love their faces. Like, you drive around and there's like massive billboards that's saying, I sold this house. Not even it's for sale. It's not even telling you that it's for sale. He's just saying, I sold this. So yeah, they love to see themselves. This is a page on the website. This already exists. If we wanted to put this in the app traditionally, we probably would have used a web view. So we just fire the user out, redirect them to this. This is responsive. It fits your screen. But we want to use this as a good use case if we can use React Native. Relatively low traffic as well from the statistics. So we're guessing that it's just agents that go on their own page. You know, when you kind of you look at your own LinkedIn page, stuff like that. So yeah, and it's got a bit of functionality involved as well. So it's not just static information. Yeah, so this is the finished product. I'm just going to show you what we did in the end. So this will start in the native app. We'll do a map search, and we'll go into a property details page, and we'll open up the agent profile page built in React Native. So we tap on one of these guys' faces here. It does a network request, and this screen is built entirely in React Native. So we've got some horizontal recycler views there, which use something called a flat list in React. That also deep links back into the application, if that makes sense. So we've jumped from native to the React component back into a native Java component. There's some logic around the inquiry form is there as well. And yeah, so that's the functionality that we ended up with. Cool. So I'm just going to give you a very, very quick rundown of what a component looks like in React. Hopefully this won't take up too much time and bore too many of you guys. So this is JavaScript here. I know it looks like XML because it's called something called JSX, which is essentially a preprocessor. So something like that view tag that gets processed into JavaScript that says react.createElementView. So it's just much nicer. It's a much nicer way to write these, and it's pretty declarative. So we've got imports at the top there. We have our render function, which is important. That's where the magic happens. That's where you get to see your UI. And then the styles are defined within the component, which is nice. So when we work on these, we'll work on one kind of single atomic point of entry. Just a quick thing about props as well. Props is what you pass into a component. It's a very simple component. If I want to show some text and pass a name through it, I just define my component. It says, hey, this is Calum. And then inside whatever component we're going to use this, we say, hey, welcome, Calum. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just some kind of basic concepts of React and how this kind of component-based architecture works. And so this is what the component looks like for agent profile. And our props is the agent ID. So that's all we have to provide it from a native perspective. So this is already built, great, and we just want to integrate it in the native apps. So how do we do this? How do we render this? So apologize for kind of just dumping some code, but it is relevant. This code resides in an activity that extends the React activity, which is the library activity. So essentially, we want the profile, the component name to match. So we have this method here, get main component name, that needs to match the same thing that we've set up in the JavaScript side of things. And to pass through props for the Android developers in the room, it's very similar to it's just building up a bundle and just putting an extra. So that's essentially what we do. So this activity is the container for our React component. Similar thing in iOS. I don't know if we've got any Swift developers in the room. Kind of, maybe. Oh yeah, I just grabbed this from one of the guys. Very, very similar thing. We've got a separate view controller for our component, and we can just pass through agent profile as well in this bundle URL. So in terms of a native developer side of things, it's very, very minimal for us to actually interact with, which is great. One issue some people might be thinking of is styling here. So for the inquiry forms, we want iOS to look different to Android. How do we achieve this? In our styles, again, it's as simple as just having something like platform.select. So you can, and as I said, these are still native components. It's not like we're having a text view on iOS and we're not wrapping it in something fancy. We're saying, okay, on iOS, it's going to have a border radius, and on Android, it's going to have slightly less padding. And this is really, really easy to do. So when you're developing on it, you can have it in an iOS simulator and an Android simulator, and you can just tweak it as suits you. Cool. So yeah, that sounds great. But we're a business. We're not just trying to get nice screens up. Domain's very, very data-driven in how we approach things. We like to stick stats and everything. We like to track them, see how we're doing, and we like to know when our app crashes, which of course it doesn't. So yeah, how do we do this? We don't want to have a separate tracking manager. What's nice about stuff like Google Analytics is you get a really nice flow, and you can see exactly where the user went, how long they spent on a screen, etc., etc. We didn't want to disrupt this. And so in order to achieve this, we need this React component to communicate backwards to each native app. So this is called the bridging. And so we have this native tracking module. That's the name of it. Sorry, not to confuse you guys. Inside the JavaScript, so the top right there. If you I didn't say this actually. If you didn't know, that's the React logo. I was hoping you guys would infer that, but maybe I should have made that more. It was in the little emoji at the start in his eyes, and that was the point. So we have this this method to track. And the event, the method name is really important, track event. So as long as we match that in our native Android and iOS code bases, then we can pick up that. So just give you an example. So whenever we call that JavaScript, we have this listener. As essentially, kind of think of it like a callback. You're picking up these two strings. And in Android, we use our tracking manager, which goes to stuff like Google Analytics, and it can go to Fabric, and it goes to anything extra. The iOS guys do some kind of Fastlane tools thing. And we can do something, we really, when you're looking at it from a stats perspective, there's no way to know that you're looking at a React Native page. And we can do the exact same thing for errors as well, so all our errors can go to Fabric. So if there's an issue with the React component, then we'll just find out about it like normal. So yeah, what was the kind of lessons learned from this? We did have some issues. Once you've got a component within a native app and you're trying to debug it, it really doesn't like it. And when I say really doesn't like it, it just crashes. Like I've tried it quite a few times. It's to do with like the ports and listening on different stuff, and kind of decided it was too much effort to move forward with it, which is a pain. There's some performance issues, so we didn't have a lot of granularity over stuff like image loading, which was a big thing. You saw that flat list, the horizontal recycle view, sorry, and it was loading all these images. Facebook have their own library called Fresco under the hood in React Native. So I think one thing I'd like to do in the future is to look into maybe bridging our own implementation of Glide. I think that would be quite nice. And the learning curve as well. So for the React devs building these components, they had to learn the Android ecosystem. Like they didn't even have Java Home set as a variable, and that was like the hardest thing for us. But in iOS, they needed to get signing keys, and they need to do whatever else that Apple requires for you to be a developer. On our side of things, we really had to understand how does React work? How do you write a component in React? And then I don't know if there's any front-end developers in the room, but like JavaScript changes like every week. So there's like ES6 and there's Flexbox, and some guys want to use TypeScript, and then other guys hate TypeScript because Flow's better. It's a pretty complicated ecosystem to learn, especially coming from something like Android, where like our biggest change is Kotlin, and we're freaking out about that already. So how did we solve some of these problems, not all of these problems? We're going to build more of these components, right? And instead of keeping this JavaScript in the native code base, having to maintain it, we thought we'd have extract it out into a monorepo. So essentially, it's just a collection of all of the components that we have existing. And this little snippet of JSON here, that's just the Android's package.json. So this is our dependencies. Whenever we want to update to the latest version, all we have to do in a PR is increment that number. And then you run npm install or yarn install, and it'll just pull down the latest version. So this is great. It's great for quite a few reasons. We've got separate development environments. So before we were building the app, then launching the component, and then having to start the component as well in order to be able to run, because it points to your local server. We mentioned Greenfield React apps. We just built a demo app that lists all of our components. So this allows us to work really independently. So you can go and build an entire component, and then you don't even need to interface with any of the native code, which is cool. Debugging works. Yay, that's good. That's great. That allows the React developers to really get to work. We don't have this kind of hold up of what's going on. We don't have to put a bunch of like console log statements. Is really fantastic. And for stuff like demos as well, like we as I keep reiterating here, we don't have to rebuild these apps. So if you're developing like a Greenfield React Native app, it's like building a website. It's like you can type and your phone automatically updates as you type. There's no Gradle build, there's no Gradle clean. It's like worlds apart from what we're used to with like 2-3 minute Gradle build times. So that's cool. That solved a few of our problems. And as I said, moving forward, actually today someone put a PR in and they've just added a new component and it just slots in there in the demo app. You can use it, you can play with it, and then when the time comes that we want to release this is just a case of me setting up the bridging activity like you saw before. Cool. So this is our conclusion. I'm by no means trying to sell you guys React Native. This was our experience using it. We're going to keep using it. We're not going to rewrite our main app in React Native by any means. But yeah, we've got a lot of resource to throw at this. We've got some really smart React developers, and we can steal them, and we can make something that's way more better and way more performant than a traditional web view. So I think this is the thing that drives it home, is that we're not just being lazy and just kicking them out to the browser. We can actually have nice components. And I mean, React Native's, it is constantly getting better. Like it's open source, right? So you have people that are contributing new components, new abstractions of things to start to build really nice and native experiences. Yeah, it's pretty, as I said, I keep saying React Native's atomic. Like for us, if we wanted to stop using it, it wouldn't be an issue. Like we're not tied to it. It's not like we're stuck inside this ecosystem. It's really like we can move forward with or without it. And for the time being, it's looking pretty good. And then, developer velocity, once we've got everything set up, the initial kind of setup took a bit of time. We're moving really fast. So we can have these, as I said, at the moment, we've just got these nice single screens. But I think in the future, we're going to try a few things a little bit more complex. What's the future of React in general? So there's a guy from Airbnb called Leland Richardson who's really, really good at what he does. React primitives is kind of a proposition for how are we going to have React as a standard for any platform. So he's built a few screens, and you can deploy them to web on just standard React. You can use React Native for mobile. There's React VR as well. In the demo, he shows this off, which is cool. It's not that practical, but you can kind of see where he's going from. Code push is a technology by Microsoft that allows you to push code straight to the application. So this completely passes the App Store. I don't think Apple's that happy about it, but Google doesn't seem to mind. If you guys ever watched Silicon Valley, you guys, yeah, must do. You saw Not Hot Dog, the app that was built in React Native, and they used TensorFlow to train the models of what's hot dog, and to update, instead of doing an app deploy to update the TensorFlow models, they just used code push. So you would just update it, and the user wouldn't know, and you have these better models to find out what is a hot dog, what's not a hot dog. It's a trivial usage, but it's pretty cool tech. And as I mentioned earlier, people are working on it now. That people are starting to adopt it more. I think after the bigger companies are taking it on board, it's only getting better, which is cool. And I'll provide the slides. I've just dumped some resources there, some really good talks. I'll just jump right down to the bottom two. So create React Native app. If you're going to start a Greenfield app, it takes a lot of the boilerplate for you. And Expo is a really cool thing. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's like you can write React in your browser, and you can scan a QR code with your phone, and you can update the browser, and it'll update onto your phone. That's really cool. If you just want to try it out and see if you can see how JavaScript and React Native work together. And that's me. Thank you very much.